Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice. And welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today it is Poetry Thursday, a wonderful day to talk about the beautiful poetry that exists in the world. So today I wanted to focus on a specific poem, one that is about a woman's years and what she's experienced in those years. I am referring to 1994 by Lucille Clifton. For those who don't know, Lucille Clifton was a Black poet who lived between the 1930s and 2010. She died not too long ago. She was mostly known for writing poetry, but she also wrote a couple of children's books as well. It's important to note that in her poetry, she often talked about the female body or her body in general, as well as feminist ideas, the nature of being Black, and all sorts of ideas like that, which you'll also find in the poem that I'm going to talk about today. So I don't know much else about Lucille Clifton. I enjoyed reading the couple poems that I found from her today, for today. So I'll perhaps read some more in the near future. But without further ado, let's talk about 1994. I will read it, do a little bit of an analysis, and we will move on from there. 1994. I was leaving my 58th year when a thumb of ice stamped itself hard near my heart. You have your own story. You know about the fears, the tears, the scar of disbelief. You know that the saddest lies are the ones we tell ourselves. You know how dangerous it is to be born with breast. You know how dangerous it is to wear dark skin. I was leaving my 58th year when I woke into the winter of a cold and mortal body. Thin icicles hanging off the one mad nipple weeping. Have we not been good children? Did we not inherit the earth? But you must know all about this from your own shivering life. In terms of analysis, there's a little bit to talk about with this poem. It's pretty straightforward. The person in the poem is turning 59. I presume it's Lucille Clifton talking, but it could be someone else entirely. But they're turning 59 because it says they're leaving their 58th year. And it says that when a thumb of ice stamped itself hard near my heart, which is really sad. This poem is pretty dark. This person turns 59 and then they just feel the deepest, darkest sadness. Maybe they look back upon their lives and it's really revealing how unhappy they were or how much misfortune they experienced. They said, I was leaving my 58th year when I woke into the winter of a cold and mortal body. And so what that says to me is that the narrator in this poem wakes up and suddenly discovers their own mortality. They wake up and maybe they're in a lot more pain than usual. Maybe all their injuries over the course of their life have just come back to them and they're not feeling good. But what this poem suggests to me is not all the pain that they're feeling is physical. Some of it seems to be mental. It says, you know the saddest lies are the ones we tell ourselves. You know how dangerous it is to be born with breast. You know how dangerous it is to wear dark skin. And that makes me think that the narrator of the poem is Lucille herself, because she was a woman and she was Black. And it suggests to me that the pain isn't physical. It's the knowledge of knowing that for her entire life as a woman, she's been treated as a second-class citizen. It's that maybe in the future her children will be treated the same way, and it's the knowledge that to have dark skin, to be Black, is to be terrorized in America, what with police shootings and just not having equal rights in terms of voting, in terms of access to housing. It's pretty sad and unfortunate, and maybe waking up after 59 years and taking a look and realizing that that's the case is it's a pretty hard realization to have. Not that I could understand being, white and male, but I can sympathize with the feeling of just looking back and being very angry, being very upset. And this poem isn't that far off. Like, this is titled 1994. And it was published in 1996. And this is only a couple of years removed from the Rodney King Los Angeles riots, where the police beat up Rodney King, were being very brutal to him. And the police officers who did it got off without going to jail. And imagine at the time being black and realizing that things haven't changed, that although there was progress proclaimed in the 1960s, it hasn't exactly been felt by the time the 1990s rolled around. And Lucille Clifton probably experienced all that. She was born in the 1930s, so she witnessed this happening. And it reminds me of another poem that I read recently that I can't remember the name of. I'll put it up here. But I think he says he turns 35 in the poem, and he's like, I want to become more cynical. And it reminds me, yeah, you're in a time where it's okay to be cynical because nothing is going well for you or people who look like you. And I really find this poem interesting because this poem sort of manifests itself in a coldness and a hardness, because all this she's experienced has made her grow ice in her heart, become again more cynical or cold, like the icicles hanging off the one mad nipple weeping. Have we not been good children? Did we not inherit the earth? It's a plea. Are we all equal? Are we all God's children? We clearly aren't if some of us are experiencing a worse life than others. And so I really like how she expresses her emotions in this poem, and how short it kind of feels. All the sentences are very short, and the verses are very short. So you really get the coldness that she's feeling. She's not in it to wax poetic about anything. She's telling you how it is. Anyway, those are my thoughts on 1994 by Lucille Clifton, a pretty wonderful poem by an interesting poet. I recommend that you go out and read it. I will put a link to it in the description. Why don't you read it and comment below what you think of it, what you think of my review, if I'm on par, if there's some other meaning that I hadn't quite got at. I would love to hear from you. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this poem and Poetry Thursday. Let's get all the booktube doing it. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and cold travels. Farewell.